Ciao ragazzi, sono la prof. Here's the subjunctive, your very favorite topic. I put a little heart here because the subjunctive is very personal, okay? So while the indicative, which are the present, future, past future, imperfetto, passato prossimo, trapassato, in theory, it state things the way they are, okay? So, hey, the sky is blue. It's raining outside. Okay, so those are just statements which are very easy to back up. However, we also have a tense that covers all those things that have to do with wishes, feelings, opinions, doubts. Those things aren't really 100% sure that they're what you think. So in order to do that, you need the subjunctive. The subjunctive is a verb that does not live by itself. It needs an opening sentence, which will state something like, I wish, I hope, I have a certain opinion, things like that. That, blah, blah, blah. And then the opinion, the hope, the wish is going to be at the subjunctive. So here we have it. In your main clause, you have statements that can be at the present, at the past, you name it. It depends. But what they will have, they will state things like a wish, they will be an impersonal expression, doubt, opinion, will, emotion, or desire. These, of course, are general terms, always little exceptions. Or there might be any of these expressions. Nonostante, despite the fact, without the che, a meno che, unless, affinché, without the che, so that, prima che, before, senza che, without. Some indefinites never add the che because it's kind of in there. Chiunque, qualunque, comunque, and dovunque, with relative superlatives, and with the word if. This is a very general idea of what you might find in your main clause. Now we have a very important thing, which is something you tend to forget. In the secondary clause, if the subject is different, okay, you will use che plus the subjunctive. If it is the same subject, and without knowing it, you've been doing it for a long time, di plus the infinitive. So all of this only counts if you have your main clause in widowed, or any of these special words. Of course, there are many more. Che plus a different subject. Please note that just because you have che doesn't mean that you have a subjunctive. Che can mean lots of other things. So usually it is used to introduce a subjunctive when you have two different subjects. Only this will be applicable, and not every sentence with che requires a subjunctive. If the subject is the same, the secondary clause is at the di, so it's at the infinitive introduced by di. Io spero di andare in Italia quest'estate. So when do we use this? I want to help you memorize some formulas that are pretty automatic on when you use the subjunctive. So with a previous class of mine, we came up with this. It's called widowed, as you already have seen. Wish, impersonal, doubt, opinion, will, emotion, and desire. And some special expressions. So I also like to give you some sample openers. So I like to call this openers. So if you have this as a premise, as your opening statement, you're most likely, if you have a different subject, to need the subjunctive. So W, because it was widowed. W, like wish. 3 examples could be desiderare, preferire, sperare. Sperare is to hope. Then we have impersonal expressions, many more. These are all samples. È bene che, it is good that. È male, it's bad. è giusto che, it is right, è possibile che, it is possible that, è necessario che, it is necessary that, pare che, it seems that, si dice che, it is said that. D, for doubt. I picked 3, but immaginare, to imagine, so you're not really sure. Dubitare, to doubt. Supporre, to suppose. This has a special conjugation. Suppongo, supponi, suppone, supponiamo, supponete, suppongono. O, like opinion. Pensare, for example. Io penso che tu sia intelligente. Credere, to believe. Ritenere, to believe. Synonym. This also has a special conjugation. Ritengo, ritieni, ritiene, riteniamo, ritenete, ritengono. Big note here. Secondo me, which is an opinion, in my opinion, it literally means in my opinion, secondo me, however, wants the indicative. It wants the indicative, so you want to remember that. Special one, special use. Secondo me wants the indicative. Okay? W, will. I picked volere as an example. Emotion. Avere paura. Temere, which means to be afraid. Essere felice, to be happy. Essere triste, to be sad. Desire. So sperare. Sperare is to hope. Then we have some special expressions. Well, no, not expressions, special words. Okay, I call this the random section. Okay, so where I put this X means you don't need a che. Well, that's silly because I already has it. Okay, so affinché it's actually in the word and nonostante doesn't take che. So nonostante, notwithstanding, a meno che, unless, affinché, so that, with a purpose, prima che, before, senza che, without. Then we have some negatives. Non, nulla, nothing. Non niente, nothing. Non nessuno, no one. Some indefinite. We don't use che because this que kind of is che. Chiunque, anyone. Qualunque, any. Comunque, in any case. Dovunque, anywhere. If you have any of these, you will need the subjunctive. Then we have the superlative relative. So you can say, lui è il ragazzo più gentile che ci sia nella scuola, that there is in school. Okay? So when you have superlative relative, you also will need the subjunctive. And then we have se. Ignore this for right now because I've actually now made a new sheet where I get into this. So se wants the subjunctive. So these are the ones I call the weird issues. Secondo me, I've already mentioned, wants the indicative. Sapere takes the indicative, I know, so that's a fact. Non sapere, don't know, so it's a doubt, wants a subjunctive. So you want to pay attention to that. It's not necessarily the verb, but it's how it's used. Sapere, it's to know. While if you use it in a negative, the meaning is the opposite, which puts you in the subjunctive mode. Then you have perché, which means because. So when it means because, you need the indicative. When it means so that, so you have consequence, then it uses a subjunctive. And I'm going to talk about se in a different moment. Also, these verbs, just be sure, do not take the subjunctive. Sapere, to know, that's its negative. Vedere, oh, I see that something, something. You just see it. It's objective. Riconosci, I recognize that. Essere sicuro, to be sure. Ricordare, to remember. Essere certo. These all give you a sense of something that is objective. So you want to pay attention to that.